All right, let's try to catch up on the S&P 500 and do an update on this chart. So, if you remember previously what we told you, we said that you wanted to watch for this area right here to come in as resistance, and that when you got up around this area, most likely people would start talking about going back to immediately 38, 3900, 4000 plus on the S&P 500, and people just get real euphoric really fast. So what we tried, telling you is that we found that these lines personally in our own, technical analysis were going to turn out to be lines of resistance, and you should take profits. These are not, lines that you go and pull up on some program. This is, each person has to chart. If you're, on TradingView or something and you're paying attention to charting, then obviously you know that. The only reason I'm saying things that some people might think are pointless is you get a lot of newcomers coming into trading, newbies, if you will. And as they come in, some of them have some really basic questions, and you need to answer those so that they can feel comfortable and don't have to continue, going to Google to look for questions, or just feeling uncomfortable not knowing what they're listening to. So anyways, these lines here that on my analysis, I told you guys I would start to take profits in these areas. This is exactly where you ended up getting resistance. So if you ended up playing out, buying this down here, which we had a major dip and a sell off, and you started running this back up. And if you listen to me when I said you should take profits in this area, and I said if you're really, not sure if you should listen to me, or you think it might go higher, then maybe take 25 or 50% at least, so that you wouldn't miss the move either way, and that way you could still be in line for this. But for me personally, I stated in the videos and in some of my other charts that I posted with analysis that I really felt that this area was actually a zone to not just take profits, but probably start aggressively taking profits if you wanted to do what was safe and worry about your capital preservation. We're still in a bear market. We're still in a downtrend. And lines that have been, support in the past, once you're below them, they're going to typically be resistance to some regard. So when you see how we, mark this out going back into the beginning of the month, as well as, prior into last month, we, kept showing you these lines and explaining to you where you would have confluence with them. So if you're paying attention, this has been very helpful to you. And, if you bought these lows and sold into these highs the first time around, you should be doing pretty good. If you came back in and bought them again, but then didn't get too crazy with, what your expectations were, then you made money again right here. You've sold off, and you could be rebuying again this morning, and just literally rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. You could have already, had at least two major successful swing trades throughout this last couple of weeks. So this one right here even went up a little bit higher, and it went up so fast that you almost wouldn't even have to be like, oh, well, you told me to take profits here, so I missed the move. From right here, it just bounced right through almost the entire zone I told you to watch, and then just gave you, extended profits if you didn't get too greedy and start immediately thinking that, you're going back to all-time highs or something. So catching back up to, what's more current, what's happened over the last couple of days, is after we sold off and rallied back up, and you got a really strong rally through the day, if you continue to not get too euphoric and pay attention to what I say, realistic expectations, and taking profits when you're ahead, not just holding and watching your money go up and down, and round tripping it basically, or just constantly only seeing the negative and the green for a minute, this would have been a really good trade for you. So moving forward, as far as coming in today goes, we figured we would come back down for a retest, and we were really hoping to hold support right here, and it started to look positive, but it turns out this was probably a bear trap, and a bull trap set by the bears. And this right here gave you some sort of feeling of comfortability and confirmation, and you started rising up off here, and you go, okay, we're going to go back up and hit here, and maybe even for a safe play, I'll front run the sell right here. Well, the market switched on us, and we're not getting none of that. Not only did we then come back down, but we then lost support. We hit this and then came through it. Now we're trying to see if we can find support that has confluence to a little bit further back. You see, this was a zone prior. You see a couple different times where wicks were coming into here. This was support. You see a big wick here. This was support. You see down below here when we were coming up, every time this was hitting here and getting rejection, this was resistance at this point. So with this many different avenues of confluence, with it not just being support but also being resistant several times over the last couple of weeks, we're kind of looking for this to hopefully hold. I mean, that's the optimistic view. And as of right now, we're getting confluence with this current candle that's printing on the 15-minute. Obviously, this is a low time frame and things can change fast. But as you see, there's a reason to watch this. Otherwise, you would have been thinking on a 1 hour candle or something that, oh man, this is super solid. It just keeps staying there for an extended period of time. And, you go from 7 in the morning, up until 8 something. You've now printed your second candle, working on your third at some point, and you're starting to think that, okay, that this works. We've got support. Well, when you're watching it on a lower time frame, this gives you an idea of what's going on. And if you came down to an even lower time frame, you could have something like this going on. So as far as that goes, you're seeing on different time frames that we've lost support even after getting moments that we thought we were looking good. The markets are continuing to trend down, and that was the biggest point to all this, is that we're in a downward trend. So it's easier to get comfortable with where your lines of resistance at overhead are going to be versus where your lines of support are, because we continue to break through them as we're in a bear market and a downtrend, and dealing with multiple different black swan events, if you will, on a global, macro, and just overall economic level, not just at home but globally. We've got wars, we've got inflation, we have supply chain issues. All of these things are adding to the problems. So that, and the money printer's turned off. So that being said, as of right now, we're hoping to find support in these ranges, but nothing's obviously guaranteed. On a 30-minute candle, you can see that we're printing our second and trying to hold. And if you go to a 15, you see that actually, and this is why you want to look at different time frames so that you have a more accurate idea of what you're thinking, that actually the rest of these prior candles weren't at this level yet. So really just these last two 15-minute candles, one of which pushed through, and this one that's trying to turn it into support. You start pushing through again, and we're probably going to lose this support and find ourselves back down at 3580 before you know it, or 3600 flat might try to pull a support line. But really, I was hoping for these other ones that had more confluence from the past week or two to give us some direction. But so far, nothing's guaranteed, and it's not really going as planned. Well, we're starting to get a push here. What we'd really like to see is to come back up and actually turn this line into support and then start building up from here. That's what we'll be looking for, hopefully, especially if you want to open a scalp trade on the stock market today. You'd look for some confluence here and a bounce, come back down maybe on one of the candles if you're watching it on a lower time frame, make your buy, and then figure out how far you think you're going to go. You could front run the sell somewhere right around these candles in the 3650 range, or you can try to see if we'll go back and actually test the resistance that we found. Because we have only tapped it one time, you will usually come back up and hit this a second time. So for me personally, that's what I'll be kind of looking for, is to hope we end up back up here before we end up down here testing these levels. In the grander scheme of things, over the course of the next couple months, do plan on coming down, most likely not only testing but breaking these levels and continuing to search for an actual bottom. And when you get down to where you had a really good reaction for a rebound here during the sell-off on Thursday, what you'll look for is that could be a nice play once we do start breaking down, is to hope that you get some sort of bounce here, buy in on this, even if you're waking through a little bit. I mean, obviously don't go all in, and then wait for that bounce, even if it's a fake out, and you can sell it before it gets to this resistance, and then expect for possibly even another move down, unless we are finally finding our bottom. Until we have more direction on the markets or something that makes sense, do not start thinking we have any sort of bottom that's going to hold. none of these supports are legitimate at this point for calling a bottom. And we continue to test new lows every other few days or every week. So that being said, these are your levels for today to watch. And I'll try to get you guys an updated video if things get crazy today. If we dip or we rip, I'll try to get you an updated video by the end of the day that you can possibly trade. Or if nothing else, get you something by the end of the day after the market's closed, so that you've got an idea in your head to work with going into the weekend and try to make a plan for next week. If you guys have any questions or anything, try to hit me in the comments or DM me. If you like, follow, subscribe, whatever, all those things are helpful. And I'll continue to try to pump these out to you and help you guys out as much as you can. If you have certain ticker symbols you would like me to look up, just let me know in the comments, and I'm happy to try to help out. You guys enjoy your Friday and have